I'm going to start out this March reading wrap-up video by saying I had a 36-page 5-star book this month. 36 pages. Like, that's absolutely insane. But I also had a DNF and a 2-star read, so like there is definitely a lot of range in the books that I read this past month, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys about it, so let's just get right into it. So starting out with the statistics, as usual, I read 7 books this month, and I also read 2,346 pages. So this is a lot more than I've usually read in past months. Like 7 books is crazy for me, but also consider that one book was a very short novella, and I also DNF'd a book, so that kind of cuts down on the page count a little bit. My average rating was a 3.0, but keep in mind I had a 1-star, a 2-star, a 3-star, a 4-star, and a 5-star read, plus 2 other 3-star reads this month, so I had a very wide range of ratings for the books that I read. My main moods were emotional, dark, and tense, which is honestly quite usual for me. I read sometimes books with more heavier plot lines, but I also had the moods of light, funny, and adventure, which kind of brightens up the books that I also read this month. And then as far as my 2024 book goal, which is 50 books and then 18,000 pages by the end of the year, I am 32% of the way through my book goal and 31% of the way through my pages goal, so I'm honestly pretty ahead of myself. Okay, so let's get into the books, because I read, like I said, quite a few books this month. So the first book that I read I actually finished in February, but by the time that I filmed my February wrap-up, I hadn't finished the book yet, so I'm counting this in the March one, and that is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. So this book is about a woman, Clementine, who gets her aunt's old apartment and then realizes that the apartment is magical, and it goes back 7 years in time, and that's where she meets a man, and the story unfolds from there. Generally, I thought this was a really good book. It is a magical realism book, which means it's not fantasy, it's taking place in modern day, but there are magical elements to it, which isn't my absolute favorite genre, but it is interesting to see how the author portrays the story. I thought the character Ewan, who is the main male character, was very nice. He's a chef, which is like, ooh, a chef boyfriend. Clementine herself could be a little annoying sometimes. I feel like sometimes the really like sunshiny golden retriever FMCs sometimes annoy me, but that is honestly more of a me problem. And also this book had a lot of good suicide awareness, which is interesting. That is a trigger, by the way, so it does talk about it in depth. However, the novel did get a little bit repetitive, and there's also a couple like theatrical monologue scenes that I was like, this is a lot of telling and not showing. So overall, although it was a really enjoyable read, I gave it 3 stars and not 4 stars, but I would recommend it if you're looking for just a really light and easy magical realism romance book about cooking. Well, more than cooking, but there's a lot of cooking elements in it as well. Next, I read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, and this is a classic Ali Hazelwood book. If you know her, you know that she mostly writes feminist STEM romance novels that are quite stereotypical, with like a big, strong guy and a teensy tiny girl, and I don't like that as much as anyone else doesn't like that, but honestly, it's not problematic as it could be in many other books. It's just kind of a funny trope that she has in a lot of her books. In Love Theoretically, this story follows a girl named Elsie, who is a fake dater, and she is helping out this man named Greg by fake dating him, and she meets his brother at an event, and then turns out his brother actually works in the same job that she is trying to get a job for, and so she sees him at a dinner party and she's like, I recognize you, and he's like, I recognize you, you lied about your identity, and the story goes from there. So it's a classic feminist, STEMinist romance. If you've read Love Hypothesis or Love on the Brain, which are 2 other very popular works by Ali Hazelwood, I'm gonna be honest, they are very, very similar to this. I rated Love Hypothesis 4 stars and Love on the Brain 3 stars, and this one, Love Theoretically, I also rated 3 stars. So like I said, it was a good book, but I felt like Love Hypothesis was the best out of the 3 when I first read it. These 2 have become a little bit just like copy-paste novels. One thing though is Ali Hazelwood did just release Bride, which is actually a paranormal romance with wolves involved. I haven't read it, but it's on my TBR, and I'm excited to read it because it means that she is deviating from the very classic like STEMinist romances, and I can appreciate that a lot. Next, I read Broken Rivalry, which ended up being a 1-star book for me. So this is about a girl named Poppy who is in college, and she meets this guy named Ethan, and it's a super annoying plot of Poppy is poor and she has brothers to take care of at home, and she's just trying to work and get money, and Ethan takes pity on her and gives her money and tries to support her family, and I could not stand it. It was so bad. It was actually so terrible. Ethan was almost stalkerish to her. He like followed her home one day, and I was like, okay, I can get what you're intending for is for him to be caring about her, but like, I don't want any man following me home. That's terrifying. Like, that's a terrifying plot. And also, Poppy was so cringe, and the writing sounded like AI wrote it. It was emotionless and choppy and boring, and I was honestly like laughing my way through. I was listening to the audiobook, so like I was doing other things when I was listening to it, but I was just like laughing. I was like, this is so bad. I can't believe I'm reading this. But I was going to stick through, but then I got to 60% and I got to a smut scene. And let me tell you, if you take anything out of this entire video, it's do not listen to a smut scene over audiobook. I made that decision once. I'll never make it again. It was a bad decision, poor choice on my part. It wasn't even that did it for me though, because that was a me problem by listening to it, although it wasn't a great scene to begin with. But also immediately after that scene, there were a couple other scenes with different characters talking to our FMC that I was like cringed out. I was like, no way, no way, no way. Yeah, long story short, I DNF'd it. It was quite terrible, quite bad, and I don't regret a thing. So I do not recommend this book at all. Don't read it. Don't waste your time. It's not good. Now, I haven't yet talked about the actual spreads that I'm making here, but as you can see in my reading journal, the spreads are very, very minimal. And it's because, honestly, I couldn't think of anything I wanted to draw to decorate the spreads with. One thing I have been working on recently is drawing separately and trying to figure out how to create like characters and polish my art style. That way I can use it more often in my journal. So I've started taking this class on Skillshare by Gabrielle Piccolo called Character Illustration, Drawing Faces, Figures, and Clothing. The course is really well made. You can tell that Gabriel knows a lot about drawing. He has a lot of experience in creating movement in his art. I learned a lot about how to exaggerate expressions and also how to make a character that tells a story and is relatable to the audience. Through the course, he goes through his step-by-step process and shows you his thought process as he creates a character and designs their expressions, their pose, their clothing, their accessories. So I've really been enjoying this course, and as you know, Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by professionals in industries like film, art, design, productivity, freelance, and more. Whether it's art and drawing like the class I took, or editing, knitting, you can learn so many new hobbies and skills and invest in yourself through this platform. One thing that Skillshare has recently added, which I really love, are their learning paths, which are hand-picked classes meant to be taken in order that build on each other, which reinforce the lessons. They are available in a range of experience levels from beginner to advanced and are in a variety of categories including design, creative freelancing, tools and software like Procreate and Blender, marketing, and more. If you want to check out Skillshare for yourself and join, I highly recommend. It is a great platform for creatives like you and me. The first 500 people who click the link in my description box below will get a free month trial of Skillshare. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Next, I read Daisy Hates, which is book 2 in the Magnolia Park series, and I loved this book. I gave it 4 stars. It was so amazing. The Magnolia Park series is a series about a bunch of young adult, rich London socialites who basically just run around, shop, gossip, have the worst drama, the worst mess. Everyone's in a love triangle or a love square or a love pentagon or something, and I eat it up. It's fantastic literature. It is a multi-POV book. This one actually has 3 POVs. The FMC Daisy, the MMC Christian, and then Daisy's older brother Julian, who in my opinion is the most interesting character. I really like Julian, but Daisy stands out to me because Daisy, in my opinion, is so much more interesting than Magnolia, who is the FMC in book 1. Magnolia is very poised, popular, pretty. That's a lot of P's, but she's just a little bit bland to me. And Daisy is very interesting because Daisy not only is all those 3 things, but she's also like has a rough history. She had a lot of trauma in her childhood. She also is going to college. I think she's a doctor. So that's like really cool. She's a doctor. I really like her as a character a lot more than I liked Magnolia. Julian, who is her older brother, is the head of a mafia, which is super cool because basically this book takes place in the same time period as the first book. So it has the exact same things going on, but you're watching the exact same story from a different perspective, from completely different characters. So it's very interesting to see that not only were there a different side to the story, but also the mafia element with Julian's mob brings in so many more interesting plot points as well. Because if you know me, I love a mafia book. And also, last thing, but it's an audiobook format, is very good. They have 3 different actors who portray each different POVs, and the man that speaks for Christian has the most delicious British accent I've ever heard. It is so attractive. So I was like listening to his point of view, and it was like, I could listen to you talk all day. All day. The book was fantastic. I do intend to continue this series. It's just so entertaining, and I really do recommend it. So Daisy Hates, 4 stars. If you're enjoying this video so far and want to see more bullet journaling content from me, I actually post this video as a series every single month. So I do monthly reading wrap-ups. So you should definitely subscribe so you don't miss next month, because I'm gonna have some really cool books to talk about with you guys. I'm sorry if you can hear the very loud cars outside, but the next book that I read was Broken Whispers. I could not tell you the name of the author, unfortunately. I don't remember, but this was a 2-star read for me, and I honestly am surprised that I finished it. It is a mafia romance, and it's a super, super classic plot. plot about, guy in the mafia, arranged marriage with this girl, and they have to live together, and then all of a sudden they realize they actually have feelings for each other, and they connect in trauma, and there's probably a gunfight somewhere in the end. Super boring, super basic. I could barely even remember their names. Everyone hyped up this series because they think it's a really good mafia. It's kind of a newer series. They're quite short books, so you can speed through them very quickly. This is actually book 2 in this series, but I just skipped book 1 because everyone said this one was better, and I really wish it was good. But it was terrible. I was so bored. I was so incredibly bored. I've read a lot of mafia romance, okay? So the plot does not change, and I understand that. But like, there are ways that you can make a similar plot be interesting. Like, add some, side quests, add some interesting characters. The MMC, I don't know his name, but he had an eye patch and a lot of scars. So like, oh, he's dark and broody and he has a dark past. But like, I thought that would give him a little depth to his character, because usually the MMCs in mafia books are like alpha males who have no feelings and they're egotistical and self-centered, which I hate, but whatever. Only the good mafia books have like a layered character to them. But this guy, even though he did have trauma and he did have an eye patch and he did have secrets, was still as self-centered and boring as everyone else. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. We had such a good setup here just for nothing. So overall, I was pissed and I did not like it. I did finish it, but I do not recommend it. It was terribly boring. 2 stars. It was not good. Next, we need to talk about my favorite book this month. This was incredible. It's incredible. Let me tell you about this 36-page book. 36. The shortest book I've ever read in my entire life. 36 pages. And that is The 6 Deaths of the Saint. This book is one that you have to go into blind. I'm being so honest with you. I went into it blind. I had a magnificent time. I finished it in an hour and a half. I cried. And I went to bed. And it was life-changing, honestly. This story is very enticing and very interesting, and the way that it's written is magnificently done. Like, jaw dropped. I was like so impressed with this author. I wish I could remember her name. I'll put her name on the screen because I want to give her credit. Literally within less than 40 pages, this author put a very layered and in-depth and creative story. And I was like, how can you make me feel so much about these characters in just so little time? It was like awe-inspiring. Also, there's like a little romance in it, and I did not expect that at all. I was like, wow, are you serious? Like, how can I like be so emotionally touched by something in 36 pages? And what's also incredible about it is half the book is written in second person. Other than cookbooks, I never read anything in second person before, and it was really well done. That was actually part of the plot twist, was like the tense that it was written in, like second person versus first versus third. I was like, this is genius, like absolute genius. I was so amazed by it. Go into it blind, read it. I swear it will be so amazing. You will love it. Like, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about this. It was incredible. Incredible. All right, and the last book that I read this month was Lotus by Jennifer Lopman, I think her name is. This was a 3-star read for me, unfortunately, but it was a very anticipated read. It's been out for a while, but I've been wanting to read this for a long time, and it's actually a quite dark plot. So it is about this boy named Oliver Lynch who gets kidnapped when he's 7 years old, and then we see him 2 decades later when he finally escapes and comes back into the real world, and he reunites with his childhood friend Sydney, who he barely remembers but kind of has memories of, and they become friends and then eventually lovers. And it is a very interesting plot. Obviously, it covers very dark topics about kidnapping and stuff like that. And I think that she handles the topic very well. I will say, just to, make sure you guys know, although it does have a dark topic, there is a happy ending. Justice is brought. Oliver does assimilate back into normal life relatively well. And it is, it has a happy ending. However, the middle part, although it had some very good plot points, I had myself getting secondhand embarrassment sometimes with some of the interactions between the two of them, Sydney and Oliver, that is, and just some other side quests and side plots that were just kind of boring to me and just didn't stand out to me. That's basically it. It didn't stand out to me. So it was a good book, and if you want to read it, it has an interesting plot, but it was just a 3-star read for me. And also, there is like a pet raccoon in this book, so if you like raccoons, then there is that kind of plot twist. But yeah, overall, not my favorite, but it is a decently good book, and it has interesting plot. So do with that what you will. All right, so finishing up this spread, my current reads that I'm reading right now, I'm almost done with Why Explaining the Holocaust, which is a book I'm reading for classes, a Holocaust nonfiction book. I'm 87% of the way through, so almost done. And then I'm also currently reading Paladin's Grace, which is a fantasy book written by T. Kingfisher. So far, I'm realizing it's more like a cozy fantasy. It's not like high action-packed, it's more chill. I wrote down that I'm 27% of the way through, but I'm actually more like 45 as of the time I'm filming this, so I'm getting through it, and we will talk next month about my thoughts with this book. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below, and also tell me if you like this format of the dual talking head portion versus desk portion. I want to know what your thoughts are on this format. Also, make sure you subscribe again to my channel because I post these reading wrap-up videos every single month, and I also post bullet journaling videos every weekend, so definitely stick around to see more from me. I wish you guys the most amazing month of April. If you want to see my February reading wrap-up, I'll have the video right over here for you to go see it. So love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in this video over here.